This is TWiT.
Tech Break is brought to you by ACI Learning. ACI Learning is proud to announce that its virtual lab solution, Practice Labs, has helped over 1 million learners. Ensure personnel have the opportunity to test before deploying new updates without compromising your live system. Visit acilearning.com and give your IT team superpowers with ACI training. New York Times had an article how Finland is teaching a generation to spot misinformation. Is it possible to do something with the consumers instead of regulating the providers?
Well, I think both need to happen. And we tend to talk a lot about the very, very necessary, part, which is making sure the providers do their job. And by the way, the difference between YouTube and TikTok, the concern here with TikTok is what if ByteDance, controlled by China, has their, a shortcut to get into TikTok. That's a very different discussion from however imperialistic the US is and however much it controls YouTube. But setting that aside, yes, platforms should do a better job and we should push them through political action to do a better job. But also, I think it's important to educate the populace, and that starts in school. Finland has a high media literacy rate, including social media and internet in general. And it comes from a very serious and real danger, which is, I think the world has been made aware of much more clearly in the past year, which is the neighbor to the east. And so the whole country has always been aware and always been very active in fighting propaganda and fake news as it is financed by Russia. And
that's the real threat
well
in Finland, isn't it? Yeah, your neighbor to the east. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That motivates a huge amount, as it does for, all neighboring countries of Russia. But it motivates a huge amount of even the Finnish identity, who the Finnish are. Yeah. But so part of the importance of making sure you're not essentially overrun and conquered is making sure that people understand what fake news and propaganda is. And it does start in school. This is the Media Literacy Index, which ranks a number of countries in Europe, in Europe primarily, but not only Europe. And Finland does rank highest in that index because you have a lot of teachers that are taking it, well, not upon themselves, it's part of the curriculum, but in junior high, you start discussing social media and how it can be used and what news mean, and not just social media, like actual news, how it means, where it comes from, who's publishing it, why one might share that kind of opinion. And it works, it's just, it's an important part of how you become a literate citizen, and it's something that everyone should be paying attention to. There's a lot to say there, but I do want to mention an interesting aspect of that study. In Europe, there are 4 big groups. The northern country mostly are well ranked. They're in the first cluster. Then you have a second cluster, which is essentially France, Spain, Germany, etc. Third cluster, which is less well ranked, Italy, Hungary, a couple of those. And then you have a couple of other clusters, which are even worse ranks. I have a question for you. Finland is the highest ranked. It has 76 points. Usually they're around 70 for the northern countries. France is at 58 points. And that's still in the good, second cluster. So pretty good. People have a pretty good handle on what things mean and what they, how to spot fake news, essentially. I wonder if you could
Do you know what the U.S. is?
Where the U.S. Yes, exactly. All
right.
They have a few countries outside outside of Europe. Would you guess where the U.S. ranks?
That's an interesting question. It's tempting to say we're terrible. I feel like we're not so bad. I feel like we'd be in the 50s, close to France. We better be as good as France.
I'm going to guess in the 40s, maybe.
Okay.
Shoshana?
I know it's weird that I'm being the pessimist here, but I was going to guess 30s.
I think Shoshana might be right.
I think that's why something that my friend Tom Merritt always says, you need data and you need studies because our opinions and biases can be very deceiving.
Yeah.
The U.S. actually ranks, I don't know how, that it is a very official study. It's a very serious thing, but I don't know how well it measures things. But the U.S. ranks 2 points above France. It's 60 and France is 58.
I knew we were better than France. I knew it.
and I'm guilty as well. I was surprised that France was in the second cluster at 58, better. I would have said we have so much disinformation about vaccines and even the war in
That's what makes us good.
And
That's what makes us good. We have lots of practice,
I guess.
And I think this is one thing that people misunderstand about the United States. It's not a majority that is polarized, that is crazed, that is QAnon or whatever. This is a small minority. It's a loud minority, but it's not a big majority. Even though Trump got 70 million votes in the last election, I think the true believers are half that at best. So I'm not surprised. I actually really, and then by the way, 2 points is probably well within the margin of error. So let's say we tied France. Just to be fair, we'll tie France. I'm not surprised. I mean, I'm not surprised Finland's better at it because, as you say, there's a more immediate threat.
It is an incredibly unifying, life-threatening.
And Nordic nations are somewhat more homogeneous, aren't they? Too. I mean, that's another issue.
There is, one thing I will say is that the middle class is much larger in at least Finland. I don't know so much about.
We used to have a good middle class here.
Sweden.
It's dwindling.
That feels like it's something that is an issue. And that, in many ways, it is, it's not only amazingly great things. Finland is very much anti-immigration. Not everyone, but there are a lot of people where they came from, meaning they're translucent and white and they have blonde hair and they're from Finland. You don't see a lot of immigrants.
A lot of translucent
again,
people.
I was saying it's coming from issues with Russia. If you open the borders, it's kind of difficult to say.
Right.
Anyway, that's a different story. But
so it's a very different world, and so it's hard to grade it.
School is important to educate people about stuff.
It's hard to grade it.